Hello and welcome to another edition of the NRS Insights podcast. I'm John Lovestock, and today I'm joined again by Suzy Silliman, the Senior Vice President of Data Strategy and Sales at NRS, and Brandon Thurber, who is the Vice President of Data Sales and Client Success at NRS. And today we will be discussing the strong June 2024 retail same-store sales report. And for those of you who don't know, NRS has some expansive reach into retail. The network now has nearly 32,000 active terminals, scanning purchases at independent retailers, including bodegas, convenience stores, liquor stores, grocers, and many, many others nationwide, predominantly serving urban customers. So with that, let me turn it over to Suzy and Brandon. Good afternoon. How you guys doing?
Doing great, John.
I had a good chance to look over the really good numbers for June. The report looked really strong. So why don't you go ahead and tell me about what is this, about a 5.1% same-store sales increase?
Yeah, the story that seems to be hold true with NRS stores is the transactions are up, so traffic is up. And again, these are primarily non-food service, non-fuel retailers. So these are consumers walking into the store with the intent to purchase at an increased rate, buying more products, spending more money, and there a lot of categories are seeing some growth with that.
And I don't have to put my researcher hat on to say that this extreme heat that pretty much the whole country is experiencing must have been a good boost for beverages.
Yeah, definitely, John. I would call June the month of beverages, both in terms of alcohol and non-alcohol, but specifically when we're talking about the non-alcoholic beverages, and we saw growth versus June of 2023 that is unprecedented. For example, total water, right? That includes your sparkling water and your sort of functional water, etc. Total water dollar sales were up 17.5%. Looking at transactions being up, both transactions and quantity being units sold up by 14%. So, water has been sort of a bit of we'll just call it static or stable category at best. Seeing increases in in those double digits is definitely a reflection of the heat wave. We saw across almost all of the non-alcoholic beverage categories increases. The last couple of months we talked about sports drinks and how sports drinks had been suffering a bit in our network, how performance nutrition shakes seem to be getting some of those sports drink shoppers, etc. This month, sports drinks had a super strong month. Again, probably due to weather, but we'll see. Across all three dimensions, the only two categories that really did not fare well were energy drinks again. That saw declines on all three, on baskets, on dollars, and on quantity, as well as ready to drink coffee.
Okay, that kind of makes sense. I mean, that's a little heavier milk-based or beverage, which when it's 105 degrees out, probably not your first choice.
But in June we also saw, it's peak summer, right? You sort of have your first day of summer where we all are experiencing the summer heat, summer season. Some of the seasonal categories, for example, like sun care in our network was up 50%. Now, sun care is not as big of a category as beverages, of course, but seeing within July of 2024 versus July of 2023 in same store scanning, right? So we're comparing the same stores here, an increase of 50%. That's significant. That's significant for the retailer. That's significant for the brand. We saw some other seasonal categories, not as extreme growth, but very notable growth. Ice, right? Also makes sense in these extreme heat conditions. Pest control, deodorant. So things that are related, but not necessarily category adjacencies, right? Related to heat, had really strong performance in June in our stores versus June of 2023.
And those are probably higher margin items, so very good for the retailer.
Absolutely.
And how about, I was going to say.
I was just going to say one notable category that comes with heat is ice cream or frozen novelty. Frozen novelty also did well, up almost 10% versus last year, which is something to note because the candy, sweet snacks, confection didn't do as well. So it could be the shopper in that store and subbing out a candy bar instead of purchasing a candy bar, purchasing a frozen treat instead.
Yeah,
Sure.
that's an excellent point Brandon brings up, is because we've been talking about sort of how the candy, chocolate, and confections categories have been struggling for, gosh, probably the last 4, 5, 6 months now at this point. And we're really not seeing that turn around from a general trend perspective. What we had been seeing is some of the other sweet types of categories, like sweet snacks, were benefiting from that, right? So where a shopper was trying to satisfy their sweet tooth during a purchase occasion, we were seeing some of sort of those purchase occasions go to sweet snacks. This particular month, sweet snacks actually suffered versus the prior year. But as Brandon's pointing out, frozen novelties increased. So sort of in that consideration set of, hey, I want something sweet. It's 105 degrees. I'm going to have something frozen and sweet, right? As opposed to grabbing a honey bun.
So let's transition to one of my favorite topics. How has the beer market been? Still strong?
So yeah, still strong, especially in June. Beer up 7% from a pure dollar perspective, leading growth category. Number one, most amount of growth from June 2024 to June 2023 same store sales. So it's usually in the top five, but to see it number one is speaks for a strong consumer behavior in these stores. And F&B cider is right there as well. So those folks are doing well. One note, we're still seeing unprecedented growth with prepared cocktails as it continues to be on the rise, but down from its 40 to 50% growth, it's only growing at 29%, almost 30%. I know that that's not any category that's growing at 30% is amazing, but it's starting to lap its popularity. So we're seeing it kind of level off a little bit.
Yes. So one of the things that I think we talked about last month is the relationship of beer and seltzer sales in stores where there is the availability of prepared cocktails. And of course, if it is a store that is selling both, then those trends look a little bit different. And the reason why I bring that up is because there's just legislation where Brandon and I, as you know, are both from Pennsylvania, and there was just legislation that was passed last week where grocery and convenience stores are going to be able to sell prepared cocktails now in Pennsylvania. And it'll be super interesting then to see what that means from the dynamics of, our stores and other stores in Pennsylvania once both, you have the proliferation of the prepared cocktails on shelf, meaning, something has to give, right? Something is going to have to give up SKUs because these stores aren't going to automatically grow overnight. And what is going to be compromised there? But then also just from a sort of a shopper choice perspective, how that begins to impact sort of those base categories as prepared cocktails become available across the board in PA. So I think that'll be interesting to see.
Just to take that a little bit further, as we see legal drinking age Gen Z consumers begin to purchase, they are typically purchasing less alcohol, going out less, that sort of thing. That's the whole non-alcoholic beer or mocktail trend happening. However, when they are choosing to purchase alcohol, flavor is of the most importance. And this trend continues across many categories. These folks are flavor first consumers. So therefore that's playing into the F&B cider seltzer and prepared cocktails growth. When you think of those categories, those are much more flavor forward categories.
You'll have to explain this non-alcoholic trend to me at another time, maybe over a beer, because I just don't
We
get it.
try every month, we try, and you just don't get it, John.
It's up
I've tried.
25%.
I wrap my head around it, and it always comes back. No, not buying it. Don't make sense.
Yeah, I saw
Uh,
last week that Athletic Brewing got a $800 million valuation.
I missed my calling. I can tell you, when I go into package stores and liquor stores, and I want to get back to the PA law in just a second. I ask them what's selling, and the one brand, I think I mentioned this once before, they said they can't keep this Surfside brand in stock. Again, I don't know. I've never had one, but it used to be White Claw, and now it seems Surfside is the it brand that they can't keep in stock. So maybe something to keep an eye on. And in Pennsylvania, I know that the Sheets Company has been on this mission for, this is like a 20-year mission to get alcohol in convenience stores. And I think they own a number of licenses that they were rolling them up over the years, that they were just waiting for the laws to change to roll it
Yeah,
out.
they had within their store format, they had the beer cave
Mhm.
already built out, but repurposed. So
Yep.
when, they could just literally flip the switch as soon as legislation passed, and they didn't have to spare any time. I did just read that the Sheet stores are going to start delivering beer. So that is that's a broader model, right, for
Mhm.
them.
Always
And
looking. I mean, the leading they're market leaders for a reason. And there's a lot of them. Rudders are the same way. Rudders has been building stores also with beer caves, ready to pull the switch as soon as they could. So good. It's good for the state. I like Pennsylvania. It'll make it easier for me to get beer when I go there. So I appreciate that. Brandon, I want to touch up on something you kind of kicked off in the beginning. You were saying that continuing a trend of strong sales. I was looking at the numbers. Really, the 3 months ending June 30th, all again really strong sales. I mean, it was a great quarter for the industry.
Yeah, we benchmark ourselves up against the U.S. retail commerce in that rolling 3 month manner, and we continue to see that our dollar sales are higher than any other retail segment in the country. And the primary driver of that is, I know that I keep saying this, but I don't want to overlook it. It's traffic. Uh, Consumers are choosing to frequent NRS independent stores. It's a trend that I'm gonna, instead of spending $120 at a grocery store with 30 items in my cart, I'm going to shop local. I'm going to shop convenient, and I might have a bag of tortilla chips, a salsa, and a 6-pack, and go on with my evening. So that is a trend that continues to happen.
It's literally like you just described what I do like 4 nights a week. So just saying. Okay,
Yeah.
good. Suzy, why don't you put on your prognosticator hat and tell us what you expect? We got for the July numbers. We obviously will have the July 4th weekend for some. When it falls on a Thursday, it's always is it a long weekend for some? It's not for some. It is for others. What do you think? How were sales looking for July?
yes, so I think that there's going to be a couple factors in play.
Mhm.
The extreme heat continues, so we're certainly going to see sort of results of that. I think July 4th, again, there are some seasonal categories that either for the day or for the extended weekend, we will expect to see some uptick, but there are also some very large DMAs that have had severe weather, that are still on extended power outages, and other things that could be impacting the retailers themselves, right? That they have to close. Or folks who are just not going out as much because of these extreme conditions. So it's a bit of a crapshoot in terms of what July will end with, but there definitely are a lot of factors in play.
Great. Okay, Brandon, anything to add?
No, not today.
All right. Can you again remind our listeners where they can get this great report and stay ahead of the trends?
Yeah, you can set your Google alerts for the NRS Same Store Sales monthly press release or monthly report, and our parent company posts it at idt.net.
Excellent. All right. Thank you, guys. So for Suzy and Brandon, I'm John Lovestock. Thank you for tuning in to the NRS Insights podcast. We hope you got a lot out of it, and we look forward to having you on a future podcast. Have a good afternoon, everyone.
Thanks, John.